Semantic search analysis. Some rules of thumb. Strive for only one top main entity on your page. So in structured data testing tool, you can see multiple types of things in the report that are not nested. So that is, when you're seeing the test results, sometimes they have, article, website, organization, things like that, all with their own drop-down expansion box arrows. Each of those would be considered this top-level entity, and we want to strive for one. The reason is you want to do that is because this can confuse the search engines. Like, what is that web page all about? Is it about an article or is it about an organization? The property main entity of page can be used to declare something as the main entity. So if it makes sense that actually to have a couple of these sort of top level main entities on the page, also I'll call them top level entities, you want to declare one of them as the main entity of that page. So you can use that property to declare something as the main entity. So here in bullet point 2, we have the developers.com/Frank. So that's a page that is including markup about a person. So we're saying that this page is about a person. Perhaps it's also an article or some other, maybe it's a web page as well or something else. But the key property and relationship here is the main entity of the page. So the following one. So Frank, the developers.com/Frank has the schema.org/main entity of page of the developers.com/Frank. So it's a kind of funny way to say this, but you can say that this person is the main entity of the page that they're currently on. So if you're on another one, so maybe it's Robert, you would say that the main entity of page would be the developers.com/Robert. So when you're thinking through your markup and you have multiple things here, you can use this main entity of page to declare the relationship to the URL of that entity. Multiple top-level main entities can cause confusion for search engines, as mentioned. So it influences which rich snippet is to be displayed in the case when there's multiple rich snippet options. You can rank the page for its key entity as well, not just as a web page or a web page element. And some of the themes that I've seen out there use a lot of the web page elements, but that can become a bit confusing if not only to kind of disambiguate what is actually trying to be described. So let's use the main entity of page when there are other structural elements or other things included on the website, such as things that might be in the footer or maybe sometimes in the header or breadcrumbs, things like that. Like let's use the main entity of page. And there's Jarno van Driel's got a great post to really go into this in a lot of detail, and so we'll link to that in the resource notes. It is unnecessary and unadvisable to repeat structured data across the website. We've seen many websites declaring the organization in the footer, so it's on every page. And while that might make sense, it conflicts with the first rule. So it's declaring your website once for the home page or the about page is sufficient. Google understands that if you have that organization declared for the home page, especially, it's going to know that everything else that's below the web page, web URL is a part of that organization. And you can use the relationships often. It's like an article could have the publisher of the organization, or the product is the manufacturer is the organization. You can use the relations to the home page or to the URL of the organization amongst the rest of your entities to allow you to then say, like, this other page is about a product, and it's not really about the organization, but it's produced or manufactured by this organization. So you want to be clear about, like, what is the main thing about that page. Be as specific as possible. So class definition, there's this idea of inheritance. So as you get more granular in the tree of the 640 classes, the more specific you're going to get. So if you use the example of a general contractor is a subclass of home and construction business, which which I think is a subclass of local business, which is a subclass of place and organization. And so HVAC business has all of the properties of the ones that it inherits from, or all those ones that are the parent classes. So the further down the kind of tree that you can get, the more specific you can get, the more clear it is about the nature of the content. There's plenty of opportunity to be specific, and the more you can do it, the better you're going to match the search intent of the users. So you can imagine in that example, if you just say the HVAC business, and you declare it as a local business, you're going to be competing against all the other local businesses like restaurants and retail stores and whatnot, and that's obviously not what you want. So be specific. The same also goes with properties. Properties can also have these inherited type of relations. So use the properties that best match the specific class, and use the class. If you have multiple properties that you can use as an option for a value, use the one that's related to the most specific class. And I hope I can illustrate that later. But suffice to say, you can also have specificity of your properties as well. You can extend if you're not getting a clear declaration of the class, you can actually do some extensions. So there's a few different tricks, or not tricks, but methods in which you can use. And this includes making references to Wikipedia or Wikidata. So you can say that a page is the same as Wikipedia, or it's talking about some concept at Wikipedia. The additional type property is one that you can, if you don't have the specific type of product or the specific type of business, you can use additional type to make mention of the Wikipedia or product ontology URL to give it some further declaration. So, like for instance, an osteopath could use the osteopathic definition in Wikipedia URL as the additional type, or product ontology, and you can find some of the documentation there from productontology.org. Additional property is one that's for products. So products have 25 roughly properties that you can use to kind of declare some of the things, and they're fairly generic. So sometimes it's like the weight, the width or dimension kind of properties. There's a color property, but really there's not too many ways to declare the properties of a product, and so they have this additional property. So when there's no specific property for your product, you use the additional property to create these name value pairs. So it could be some sort of special thing about the property. Failing those, you can still use the extension mechanisms of schema.org, but let's hope that you can use as much as possible those other built-in type of mechanisms first. More is better, except for hidden text. In general, rules is to mark up only the content that is visible to the people who visit the web page, and not content in hidden divs or other hidden page elements. And this is the policy of Google. Some concepts, however, though, aren't for users. So an action, that's something that you would encode with JSON-LD, and that's not something that you're going to show to the user specifically. Another one might be the encoding as opening hour specification. So you're not going to go through and make reference to all like the exact different encodings in the opening hour specification. So long as you're showing basically, hey, you're open Monday to Friday, and these are the general hours, you can do the encoding kind of separate from it, but making sure that it's actually a representation of the content that's on the page. But you can use this meta tag or the link tag as ways to produce markup that's not shown to the user and is also not a hidden div, for instance. So meta here in this case, this is for a rating. So if you have a rating between 1 and 5, you would have your worst rating and your best rating. That's not something you have to show users necessarily. And so you can use a meta tag with the item prop and content to represent that in your microdata. The link is another way in which you can produce a value that's not shown explicitly to the user. And so in this case, we have the availability of something in stock. So you're not going to show the URL schema.org in stock. You're going to show them, maybe some just the word in and then space stock, which would be a better experience. And so you can use link to link to ones with URLs. Expected types, values, and text. Most of the properties have their expected types. You can see this in the descriptions of objects and classes. So you would be able to see either the expected value of a text, a URL, or it's another type of class. The value of the property can itself be an embedded item. So it's not a requirement, and it is okay to just include a URL for concepts or text in many cases. So if there's an author that's expecting a type of person, you could, for that author, you could put in just the text, and that would be interpreted as the name of that person. Or you could use the URL. So if you could have the person instead of the full details, you just put the URL of the author, and so you can actually you can do it as a pointer in this case. Or you can be an embedded item, which is, you would say this is a person, is a type, the author is a type of person with a name and maybe a description, the URL, and person or the given name, and the different properties. So you can make all that embedded as part of the parent or probably the main entity of that page. When an expected type is specified, it is also fine to embed an item that is a child type of the expected. So I can't think of one too quickly off the top of my head, but here's an example of in the bullet points. So if the expected type is place, it's also okay to embed a local business, or it's also okay to embed that HVAC business. So it doesn't have to be it's just anything that's of a subclass or subtype of a place is totally valid and actually better. So be as specific as possible. Using the URL property to point to more details page. So this was mentioned in the last one, but this is kind of how you would do it. So some pages are about a specific item, so maybe it's about a person or a list of people, like in a collection of employees with links to their profile pages. So for the collection, mark up each item separately, and in this case as a series of persons, and add the URL property to the link to the corresponding page for each item. So in this page we have a list of people, and with using the A element, you have the href, which has the URL for Alice Jones, and you give it the item property. So this is mostly just as a pointer to Alice Jones, and this is where you would put more details. So this is very much in the nature of the semantic web. So giving pointers to other data within the data.